Thank you for joining us. My name is Kafi Kareem, and I'm here with Rachel Osbourne of Isleandindies. And we are here to talk to you today about why you need coverage for those scripts that you're working on. If you are working on a script as a screenwriter, or you are a producer who is looking for scripts to produce, or if you are a granting agency that is looking to encourage the production of more movies, and you're wondering, how do I know which scripts to develop? We're here to answer some of those questions today and to talk about a wonderful service that we have developed for screenwriters, producers, and other people in the movie making agency to make the most of their investment in scripts. So, Rachel, do you want to talk to everybody about how you came up with our title for this service, Script Concierge?
I think it's okay. So I think this whole thing, I guess we can talk about how everything came up. This whole thing came up when you were sharing the Caddy Club with different producers, and I was one of the people that was reading for you. So I think the name kind of came from the fact that I think that what we're offering is something that is very specific to our audience. And our audience could be anyone in our diaspora or our region, or even people that just want to produce similar content. So I think concierge for me comes from just that feeling that you get, that kind of like prestige that comes with having somebody on your team. They are there just to help you with exactly what you need for your production. And again, because you are protecting your investment, this person, us, we are going to help you to do that. I think we can start by talking about, folks that have different writing goals, because you did mention that what we're talking about is not just for screenwriters, it's also for people who are in other parts of the industry. So do you want to talk a bit more about getting feedback just in general and who would need feedback on a script?
So movie making is without a doubt a collaborative experience. No part of the movie making process happens in isolation. That is true from the very start of the process, which begins with a screenplay. A screenplay is without a doubt the most valuable asset when it comes to movie development. Your script determines the value of a movie, the budget of a movie. It's the tool that you're going to use to get people interested in coming on board as producers and talent. And of course, movies are all about stories. So your script is where you lay the story down for your movie. For all those reasons, your script is the most valuable asset of the production process. And so when it comes to different approaches to writing scripts and also developing scripts, what we're here to do is to give you a tool to understand, how can I figure out, is my script going to be marketable? How can I figure out, is my story doing what it's supposed to do to engage audiences? How can I determine whether or not I am working on a movie script that is worth putting my time and money into? So feedback is essential to be able to help to determine those things. I myself am a writer, and it is so easy to get lost in the forest of your writing and to just get, overwhelmed and bombarded with the process. Having somebody else read your script, whether that is somebody who knows how to give professional coverage or just somebody who is a friend and happens to like a good story, having somebody look at your script is one of the most important parts of your writing process. You need outside eyes to let you know if what you're setting out to achieve in your story is actually what you're achieving. So I always send my scripts to at least 1 to 3 other people, whether they're industry professionals or industry outsiders, so that I can get feedback and ask some, really specific questions like, was there anything about this story that confused you? Did you like it? Were you interested? Is it something that you would want to see on a screen? Would you pay to go see this in a movie theater? If not, why? Were there any characters that you liked or didn't like, and why? So Those are some of the kind of questions that you can ask people. And if they're industry professionals, the kind of questions that you want to ask are, what types of scripts are selling? Is this a script that can be sold? Is this a script that I can use to advance my career or to get into the diversity program? There are all sorts of ways that as a writer, a screenwriter, you can use a script to either build your career and make the next step in your career, or to show your portfolio as a filmmaker, or to build a team around your project to make money. So those are some of the goals that we have when we set out to write a movie. And feedback helps us protect those goals and make sure that those goals are more achievable.
Right. And one thing that you said that I think is very important is like really talking about that isolation factor and realizing that, you know, a lot of times when we're getting started, we think about screenwriting as a solo sport, and it's definitely a team engagement.
Oh,
Right?
absolutely. Absolutely. It is. You know, you as the writer, you have control over your story. You're going to be coming up with the main elements, like the characters, what happens at specific plot points. All of that is up to you. But you need feedback in order to refine each of those points and make the right creative decisions to make your project the best it can be. So even though a lot of it is, you know, on you, there are key points in your writing process. For me, that usually comes after the first draft, but it can oftentimes come earlier. Even with the outlining process, you can get feedback for your treatment, which is another step that happens before you write your script. You can get feedback. So at any point along your process, know that you don't have to do it alone. And even though you have, if you're working independently, you have ultimate creative control over your script, feedback is still very important to make your script the best that it can be. And every working writer that I know has people read their scripts, whether they're part of a team or a studio, or they have a network of writers and readers that they turn to. Nobody that I know who has done this screenwriting thing successfully does it completely alone.
Yes. And I think one thing that I think we talked about kind of last week is the fact that, you know, before you even put pen to paper or start like fleshing out your idea, there's a lot of research. I know we're talking about coverage here, but I think it's good to, you know, mention that before you even start, you need to look at things like genre, really know what's happening in the market. So when you mentioned earlier about checking with people to see if this is something that they're even looking for, if they're in a position to buy your film. Do you want to talk a little bit more about that? But I guess we'll do another video that focuses solely on that topic.
Yeah, we can talk a little bit about it, and as you mentioned, we can talk a lot more about it in another video.
Okay.
But just to introduce the whole idea, if you are a working producer or somebody who works in the film business, the more that you work in the industry is the more information that you'll gather about the marketplace. I, as a writer and producer, work with a film advisor who has worked with filmmakers across Latin America and across the Caribbean and in the US. And she's one of the people who I have been able to get information from about what is selling in the marketplaces, both domestically in Trinidad and Tobago, where I'm based, regionally throughout the Caribbean, and internationally in markets like the US, Europe, Africa. She's able to give me information about what types of movies sales agents and other distributors are looking for. So there are people in every industry, no matter where you're working from, who have this type of knowledge. And the more that you yourself work in the industry, you'll start to observe trends about which types of movies are performing well in your theaters, which types of movies are doing well in terms of social media buzz, and which seem to get a lot of attention. And as you do your own independent research and also make relationships with professionals who have the knowledge about your industry, that's an important part of your script development process. Because if you're strategizing to write a movie as a business, as somebody who wants to make movies to make money, then you are going to have to be paying attention to what the trends are in your industry. And so research, market research, is an important part of what we call the script development process, which is sort of an umbrella category under which script coverage also comes, because script coverage may focus more on the story, but there's also an element of script coverage that focuses on marketability. And when it comes to the marketability element of script coverage, that's where this market research becomes really important. And so working with people who have the knowledge of what's selling in markets and how that can help you with your film can really give you a competitive edge.
Okay, so you talked about how marketability affects, coverage. What else? Like, what are the other parts of coverage? Like, what can someone expect if it's their first time seeking a professional to read their script?
When you get coverage, one of the first things that we're going to do is we're going to read your script and create a log line. You may have created a log line already, but as a new reader who is seeing your story for the first time, we're going to create a new log line that looks at who's the main character, what's the main conflict that they're going through, and hints at how this story is resolved in your script. So it's usually 1 to 2 sentences. That's a brief description that is actually like a little pitch for your film. And so this logline is a good way to sort of summarize your story and also to let people know what genre it's in, what they can expect from this movie. And it's 1 to 2 sentences that can become really valuable for you as a filmmaker when you're pitching your film, and also just to understand if your story is really communicating what you intended to communicate. We'll also look at the title of your film. Is it any good? Does it, again, help communicate something about the genre of story that you're writing? Does it help communicate something about the themes? Does it have an appeal that will bring in audiences? We also look at your story structure. So movies have a certain structure that usually follows a three acts. And within those 3 acts, there are certain plot points that you usually want to hit if you're writing a commercial movie. That is a movie that's intended to sell to general audiences. And so if you're writing that type of movie that you want to reach as wide of an audience as possible with, we look at, is the plot doing the things that we expect it to do? And is it moving along in a way that keeps audiences engaged? We also look at things like your characters. The characters that you've created. Are they characters that we have seen before in movies? Are they stereotypical? Are they original? Are they interesting? Are they 3-dimensional, or are they kind of just one note and flat? Characters carry movies. So we look at your characters and we give you feedback about how they are performing in your script. We also look at things like dialogue. So, the way that people speak in a film tells a lot about where it's set. It tells a lot about the different characters, where they're from, their points of views. And all of those things are really important. So we critique your dialogue to let you know if it sounds stiff, if it sounds authentic, if it fits your genre, because different genres have different types of dialogue. So all of that sort of stuff is feedback that we'll give you on when it comes to your dialogue. And overall, all of those elements will be scored. So we'll say, okay, for all of those elements, your title, your structure, your character, your dialogue, how are you performing on a scale of poor to excellent? We'll give you a score. We'll also look at the marketability of the film, keeping in mind the research that we have about what's performing in different markets. And then we'll give you a summary of the film. So this is what happens from beginning to end in the film. And we'll make recommendations about how you can make the film better. And depending on your point of view, if you are coming from the point of view of you're wondering, should I invest in a film? We can give you advice about, yes, this film is worth investing in. or no, it's not worth investing in, or yes, it's worth investing in, but these changes need to be made if you want to recoup your investment. If you're coming from a writer point of view, we can let you know that if you want to make this the strongest film possible, the strongest story possible, to attract partners, to move your career forward, these are the changes that you need to make, or these are the recommendations that we can offer you to, move your specific career goal forward. So whether you're coming from the writing side, again, the producing side, or if you're a granting agency, we can find out what your goal is, and we can make sure that our recommendations that come after we do your analysis of your story and the marketability, we'll make sure that the recommendations that we make are tailored to what your specific goals are as a screenwriter or a producer or a financier.
Okay. And what if someone says, well, we're working in our region, we don't necessarily need something like this. Like, we just make our films and move from there. What would be your response or your advice to someone who thinks like that?
Well, I think everyone should have their own goals. So we can start there, right? Everyone can have their own goals. If you're an artist who, you decide that, we make our films, we're not really interested in getting context about how to make the films perform better, either domestically or regionally, because we're coming from a point of view of the arts maybe should be pure, or it just doesn't interest you, and that's fine. That's awesome. That's a great approach. And I think that in film, as in many creative industries, there's an important place for art pieces that aren't commercial. There's an important place for experimental pieces that aren't commercial. So everything has its place. If, however, you are trying to make something that is commercial, as in you want to make a business from your screenwriting or from your movie making, then as a region, and both as individual people who are working in movies or as teams who are working in movies, it is critical that we start investing more in script development, because script development really is the key to making more money for our region's Caribbean film, for our Caribbean film industry, and for ourselves as individual teams and individual filmmakers. If we want to commercialize our products and make more movies, script development really is an important and really unlosable, even if that is no word. We can't lose it, right? We can't lose that step. And so right now, I think that many of us maybe don't pay enough attention to script development. And I would urge you to realize that the process of combining market research with story feedback helps you create a product that you can take to the marketplace and be more assured that that product will perform well. In every other industry, producers have standards that they have to adhere to make sure that their products are approved to meet the needs that consumers have and to meet the needs that the people who are selling their products have, right? If you are producing, let's say, a food product and you want to get it on the shelves of a grocery, usually there's an approval process where you have to pass a certain type of inspection, right? You have to meet certain standards to protect the consumers who are consuming your food, but also to protect the people who are selling your food. When it comes to film, that's no different, right? The industries that have successfully churned profits from movie making, all of them have in common a very rigid development process that looks at the strengths of the teams that are producing the movies, looks at the markets in which they're operating and how those markets are performing, and then develops scripts in response to combining the strengths of the teams and the marketplace research with knowledge of story development and what audiences want and what it takes to really pull audiences and get them to spend their money on the entertainment that we're producing. So if we can look at that as a model, and if we are really committed to, again, commercializing our movie products and to growing the Caribbean's film industry, then I would urge you to consider that script development is a very important process, and it's something that you should be working on developing in your filmmaking process.
Right. And script development, to me, the more you kind of put into it and make sure that, everything is done well during that time, I think it really helps too when you go into production. So things that, you may have missed, because when you really look at filmmaking from different industries, you really realize that the amount of teams and resources and different things that go into one production, because of that investment. And I think goes back to what you were saying about protecting your investment, because you are investing so much and so many people are relying on this one production, not just, for their entertainment value, and we're talking about consumers, but also for work. So I think development is really protecting to make sure that everybody along the way, things don't break down in the middle of production. You don't want to get started and then you have a catastrophe. So to me, it's like I would rather spend a lot longer time in development and really work out all the kinks and, really get everything that I need, especially when it comes to making sure that story and storyboarding and shot lists and things like that and locations, all the minutia is taken care of so that when it's time to actually produce, I'm confident going into production. I'm not stressed. I mean, it still will always be stressful, but I'm not stressed about like the details and the logistics.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%. And the thing about development is it's during the development process that things like budget are determined.
Yes.
So we're talking about creating work for people in the film industry, as you mentioned. And it's during the development process that you are able to decide, okay, what budget to set. And again, looking at market research, you can what you ought to be doing is determining that budget in the context of how movies are performing in your market. So not just, saying this is how much we're going to spend because this is how much we have, but saying this is how much movies make and this is how much they could potentially make. And so therefore, if we want to make a profitable movie, we're going to set a budget within this range. And then again, you get to set the stage for all of your pre-visualization and pre-production work that you were mentioning, right? By making sure that your development process is solid. By the time you lock that script, you know that you have taken into account everything that you need to make a really solid script and to make a project that's going to be profitable. And so that when you start the pre-production process now of storyboarding and of your shot listing and all of that pre-visualization work, you are doing it on something that has been vetted from every angle, from the story angle, from the budget angle, from the market performance angle. It has been, fleshed out.
Right.
And so once you get the ground running, it's just like you're just laying tracks in your pre-production process, so that when the production train starts coming down the track,
you're not running out of track.
Exactly, you aren't running out of track, right? You just let it go.
Yeah.
and hope it doesn't like go off a cliff or something, right?
So we've covered, foundational things like why you need to really dig into your development, make it an investment, and protect that investment. So once someone comes to us, we actually read and analyze their project, their script. How do they implement, or how do you implement feedback? Because I know you're someone, when you're working on a production, you do get a lot of feedback at different stages of production. So and we know that it's up to each filmmaker how they will do it. So tell me how you do it.
So some of the things that I consider when it comes to feedback are who's financing the film. So the feature film that I have been developing over the last few years attracted some interest from producers who had financiers that may have been willing to put some money on the table. So when it comes to the ultimate goal of seeing your production made, one of the things that is just part of the formula is that, you know, he or she who pays the money, their voice matters. I had a screenwriting teacher who explained to me that when writers work with studios, for example, studio executives, who are the people financing projects, will often give you notes based on what their needs are for the project. And you have to factor in those notes because they are the people who are financing the project. That said, there's a way to make sure that you are meeting the needs of the stakeholders who are interested in financing your project while also staying true to what you have to say as a writer. And so oftentimes, I'll give you a specific example. Oftentimes you'll get notes, like a note that I got on my project, the Caddy Club, is that if we're making this project for family audiences, we may not want to have guns in it. So just to give you a little bit of context, the Caddy Club is about four young troublemakers who get in trouble with a police officer because one of the little group of friends is gang affiliated, and his cousin asks him to hold a weapon. And so holding this weapon ends up landing him and his three friends in trouble with the police officer. And that kicks off a whole adventure that eventually takes them into this magical world where they get powers and become crime-fighting superheroes. But before we get to any of that, there's this incident in the movie where we have a weapon. And so in my original treatment for the film, the weapon that was found by the police officer is a gun. Some of the notes that I was getting from the people who wanted to help produce the film was that maybe it shouldn't be a gun, maybe it should be a knife. A gun is a little bit too extreme for family audiences. Now, it's a note that I still haven't completely gotten the solution for. I did make the changes and wrote a version of the script where we had knives instead of guns. But to be completely honest with you, I may switch and go back to guns because the producers who recommended that the changes be made, they haven't financed the film yet, which means that there's still an opportunity to get financing from other people. And based on different feedback that I've been getting, there's some who believe that, especially in the times that we're living in, now is a great time to be honest about the fact that Black young people are often exposed to a level of violence that may be uncomfortable for families who come from different backgrounds. So yes, in typical family circumstances, a gun may be something that is like, whoa, like we can't see that in a family film. But for a lot of young Black people around the world who happen to be in circumstances where they are economically disenfranchised and around a level of violence that is really obscene on a daily basis, it's like, of course it's a gun, because why would it be anything else, right?
Mm-hmm.
So those are some of the factors that come into play to make a simple decision like that, a simple story moment. What type of weapon is it? You have to factor in the financing aspect, who's paying for the project, but you also have to factor in what's the goal of the project in terms of the impact that you want to leave on audiences. And is it worth it to push the bar if you are trying to make the right sort of impact, right? And so with all that has been happening in the world, because again, nothing happens in a bubble. We're writing a movie, but we live in a real world.
Right.
And so audiences are evolving rapidly, right? And audiences may be ready for a story that has 12-year-olds having to make decisions around holding guns. And so that's just a little bit of insight into like the type of feedback that you're gonna get, the type of pushback you may have to give. And so ultimately it's a matter of figuring out how do you meet the needs of the people who are financing the project while also making sure to keep a context about what your goal is as a movie maker, and what you would like to achieve with your story, and what you think is really the heart of your story.
Mhm.
So if we're writing a film about ghetto youths rising up, a simple question like, is it a knife or a gun, becomes like a really big issue. So feedback is really, about, again, looking at the different stakeholders and trying to find a happy solution that meets the needs of stakeholders, but that still advocates for your perspective as a writer.
So to that note, I think it's also good to mention, just because sometimes as writers we can get really married emotionally to everything, our characters, our locations, um, even our advocacy that we're putting into our film, which is, I think, kind of where the whole gun versus knife thing comes in, because you're really, again, trying to do something impactful and it's the message. So how do we make sure that when we are receiving our feedback, we're not personalizing what the reader and analyzer or script coverage person is saying, or whether that's a producer or anyone on our team? Like, what's the thought process that you have to kind of like have to not feel like this is a personal attack on your writing?
I think that's a great question. And what works for me is keeping the whole process mission focused. So our mission is to produce a movie, and a movie is about engaging audiences and really leaving a lasting impression on them, and giving them something that adds value to their lives through entertainment, and maybe through, even empowerment, right? Allowing them to see themselves on screen in a way that they maybe haven't before. And so if you keep that goal in mind, you're able to take all of the feedback that you get and think about it as aiding the mission as opposed to criticizing you. So any feedback that we get, or that I get, I look at it as in, okay, how is this helping advance the goal? The goal is to get this movie made. So this producer knows a financier. So this feedback comes from his belief that this note is going to help us get the money that we need to get the film made, so that we can reach audiences and so that we can achieve all that we wanted to achieve in terms of adding value to their lives and making an impact. I'll give you another example of a note that I got. I got a note from an actor who was considering a project. And what she told me was that we needed to increase the stakes in a lot of the scenes. It felt way too safe, and it didn't feel like the characters, the kids, were in any kind of danger. And essentially what she was responding to is that movies are about problems, right? Movies are about people going through things that are emotional. Otherwise, audiences get bored. We don't go to movies to watch like that guy who just had a great day and walked down the streets with the birds chirping and nothing ever happened to him and everything was all smooth sailing and he got every green light when he was like driving down the street and he got everything that he wanted in life and nothing ever went wrong. People would be asleep before like the first 5 minutes were done, right? We watch movies because something goes wrong and we want to see, how do people overcome it? Movies are about like the resilience of the human spirit. Like, how do we overcome the problems that we encounter, whether those problems are relationship problems, environmental problems, big disasters, evil villains. It's about things that happen that we have to overcome. And so I could have taken the note personally and said, okay, oh my God, I'm a crappy writer because like I didn't make enough drama, right? But instead I was like, no, the goal is to engage audiences, and I have an opportunity to better engage audiences and to meet that mission now that I've gotten the feedback that these scenes are boring as hell. Right? So it's not about me being terrible. It's about me having an opportunity now to better meet the mission of engaging audiences by making these scenes more dangerous and by making the characters experience more conflict in these scenes where it's like, okay, we actually care, because now it's like, oh my God, what's going to happen to them? We're scared. And we're engaging emotions. And that's what movies are about, engaging emotions. So the great thing about keeping things mission centric is that it not only helps you not take feedback personally, But it also helps if you have to push back on any notes that you receive from people who are financing the project or other stakeholders in the project. Instead of just saying, no, I don't like that note, you now get to say that if our mission is X, I don't know if making this change or doing this, implementing this suggestion is really going to help with the mission. Perhaps we could do X instead. What do you think about that? Which is a completely different conversation than I just don't like your note, right? So it's not just I don't like knives. It's that I think guns will really be a provocative choice that helps push the conversation forward about the circumstances that Black young people end up having to be in.
Right. And I think from that perspective, in terms of staying mission focused, it's good that for us, our coverage considers, their goals. Like, what is your mission? We dig deep into like, what's your goals? Tell us more about your project, not just looking at or reading from a place of story structure and that's it. We really want to know, why are you creating this? Why is this important to you? Why is this important to the audiences that you're serving? And then we go from there so that we can give you a well-rounded, look at your story, the stakes, and the marketability of it as well.
Absolutely.
Cool. Since we are talking about Script Concierge right now, we did already talk about what to expect when you are getting coverage from people. And for us, it's pretty much the same. We do give script notes. We look at character development, like we just said, professional goals. And we have this built out into 2 packages in case people need more detailed notes than just a regular basic coverage. So can you talk a bit more about, what else people can get?
So when it comes to Script Concierge, what we are doing is not only offering you script coverage that looks at your story and the story's marketability, but we also can offer you one-on-one consultations where we help you determine some of the ways that you might want to implement the notes that you've been given. So you have the option to be able to get feedback from us that is one-on-one, in addition to being able to get a score sheet with a summary and written suggestions if that's what you prefer. We also have the option of helping you before you even start your writing process with giving you tools to help you develop your outline. Outlining is one of the most important parts of your writing process because the outline is the stage at which your plot structure is first drafted. And so because we understand how important the outlining process is, we have developed some tools to help you with the outlining process. And you can shop for those tools at isleandindies.com in the shop section. And we give you a workbook that allows you to, on your own time, go through and outline your movie with instructions about how to determine each step of your outline. And we also give you the opportunity to get a consultation that gives you feedback on your outline before you even waste any time writing your script. You can get feedback on, is your outline hitting the beats that it needs to and doing what it needs to at each stage. So those are some of the ways that we can help you improve your development process through the script coverage that we offer, which gives you a score sheet on your script and lets you know how you're performing both in terms of story structure and marketability, through a one-on-one consultation that follows up on your script coverage, and also through the outlining prep tools that we've created, where you can buy the workbook as a one-off to help you develop your outline, or you can buy the outline and also get feedback on how your outline is performing and if it's really setting the stage for you to write a well-structured screenplay.
Right. So we got you from way before you start writing and after you write your script. If you do want to reach out to us, you can do that on isleandindies.com. The link for that will be in the description for both the shop and for the Script Concierge page. And if you have any questions for us, just generally, if you're not sure, what service or product would be best for you, there is a link to contact us there. And I'll also put one in the bio so that you can reach out to us and, shoot your idea by us and we can see how we can help.
I'm looking forward to really working with writers and producers. So we hope that, if you have any interest, you'll get in touch with us.
Yes, and you can hit us up on social as well. So you can reach Kafi at Kafi Kareem. I'll put that in the description as well. And for me, it's Rachel Osbourne _ also in the description. Have a great day, everyone. We'll see you on the next one.
Bye.